Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Omega Files. I'm your host, Dr. Freedom. Good night. Well, tonight we've gathered to have a little talk about a tiny little movie. I'm sure it's completely insignificant, called Avengers Infinity War. And this was one of the big payoffs to the Marvel Universe. We're talking, 19 movies of build up to get to this point. And, talk about playing the long game and really coming out with the jackpot. It's just an amazing flick. All right. Well, I want to get your guys' views on it. So we're going to go around and holler on you. And when I do, go ahead and give me your opening thoughts on Avengers Infinity War. Let's start at the bottom this time. Let's start with Philip. Go on ahead.
Hello. Yeah. When I watched this movie the first time around, I thought it was a whole lot better than the previous ones that I've been watching. To a point, I found Thanos an interesting character only for the fact that he had a heart to a point where he was willing to sacrifice his not daughter, but what's her name, Gamora. When he did that, that kind of made me look at him in a different way, as opposed to just your generalized villain that's out to destroy the universe, because he had a heart in there that he was willing to sacrifice. That part of it was good. For the movie itself, I think the most interesting parts were the battle at Wakanda. I enjoy those parts of the movie, the battle there, and also the sort of like parts where everybody was losing out to Thanos, to the point where he's eradicating him from life. So those parts were very interesting. The other parts of the movie, they were fine. They're just like your normal Marvel movie flick kind of things, which was fine. But when you get to the real nitty-gritty of the battles, that's when it piqued my interest, I should say.
All right, Ian. Okay, Beefhead, what do you think about it?
There's no getting away from it. This is a huge movie that has been, for the most part, 10 years in the making. And it is relentless. To be honest with you, you are just like, you're constantly battered and battered and battered throughout the whole movie with stuff happening and everything like that. And it's really hard to give a fair assessment of this movie because it is part one of a two-part thing. What this movie is really good in, that it does, is that it's able to marshal this massive stable of characters and give them all, I think, to a certain degree, equal screen time and sort of position them where they need to be. The great part of having a two-part movie is that when you get to the end of this, it's a case of you're on the back foot, and you think, how the hell are they going to get out from this? What's good, I like about this as well, that it's not also just about your main characters, which, spoiler alert, you lose half of them by the end of it, is that your second string characters do actually play a big part. Shuri, Black Panther's sister, she, is still there by the end of this. You've got that sort of element to it. There's no real character development. Don't get me wrong. There's no character development in this. The one that you get the most character development from this story is principally about Thanos. This first movie is, because you get a full character arc. You get him from where he's come from. And he's the one who goes through the transformative journey. He's the one who changes by the end of this, and there's a resolution to it. There's some great sort of surprise moments to it. I did not expect to get the Red Skull show up in this. That for me was a personal thing. Is, oh my God, that is the one character I did not expect to see. And I went and saw this in the first week it was released, because I think, it's one of those ones that you sort of have to make that pilgrimage to the big silver screen for. And it is, like I said, it's just relentless. It is, you're sitting there and it's sort of like, it's one beat after another. You don't really have time to catch breath. And there were a lot of people who, by the end of it, were sort of not traumatized. That's probably a very, save space, making apologies for people who are very delicate these days. But it is like, whoa! It is. There's no other way to describe it when you get to the end of it. But it is a very much a solid movie, and I think without the way Marvel have conducted themselves over this past 10 years, you would not have thought this to be possible. This is a landmark thing in the cinema when you have so many different properties, everything like that, and they have managed to do it, and they've managed to do it successfully, because it could have been so very wrong, but they have got it right. Okay, if you want me to be nitpicking, yeah. Hong already cut someone's hand off in the start of this, to be honest with you. Why didn't they cut Thanos' hand off earlier? It would have solved a lot of problems a lot sooner. But, it is. You can't get away from it. It is a good movie, but I think the second one will be even more fantastic. And we'll get into it.
Now you see, that's one instance where they should have called in Ash to join him. He could have chainsawed that damn hand off, Okay, let's move over. Oh, well, he shot to the bottom of the screen. Okay, let's go to William, then we'll go to Ryan.
Hey now, everybody. Yeah, this just like Beep said, is 10 years in the making, and it's you can say loosely based on the two comics that came out like more than 25 years ago, which is, of course, the Infinity Gauntlet. You see Thanos with the gauntlet right there. And, of course, what started before it was Thanos' quest, in which he searched for the gems. Even though, like Beef said, you hardly have any other character development besides Thanos, but you did find out what has been happening with some of these characters since their last appearance in movies like that. Like, for instance, in Tony Stark, we hear right in the beginning that him and Pepper are married now. They already got married. That's why you see them talking about him wanting to start having a family. And of course, the Vision and Scarlet Witch are having their own little relationship, but they want to start their own normal life, not being involved no more in superheroes. Just like in Captain America is still on the run, and you could say he's staying in Wakanda. So and Peter Parker is still in school. That's come. He had to use his friend Flash, to give a little excursion where he could escape from the bus like that. So you caught up with some of these from the last preview in Avengers, including Thor, especially what happened with his Guardians from the ending of Thor Ragnarok. So so we caught up with them real fast like that. And like again, what Beef said, this is a fast-paced movie. It was unusual. This is a 2.5-hour movie, and I hear that almost an hour is cut off. Almost another hour is cut off, which is very unusual. So you got to give props for this. And unusual that, again, this is a part one of a 2-part movie. And the budget for the combined movie is $400 million. And just this movie alone already hit over $2 billion. So not only did it make his money back, it paid for the next film, and everything else is just going to be profit from the next movie alone. And I'm not even counting the DVD sales when it comes out in another week. So you got to give Disney/Marvel props for able to accomplish something like this, because not like a year or so ago, we thought the Justice League would stand out on its own, but it started with such problems. And then when we found out that instead of a 2-parter itself, it was cut, trimmed into a one movie that was under 2 hours, it really bit itself in the foot. And I'm not saying that the Disney characters suck like that. It's just that the higher ups didn't let those who was writing and directing it let them do what they can to make a successful film. Unlike over here, Disney let the brothers direct this movie, and of course some, you can say like some other writers from other movies like Thor and Guardians got involved in it, but then it was all the brothers who directed this movie, and they did a great job. So I'm looking forward to see the sequel to this, so you see how it goes. And I know, like you said in the beginning, from that we lose half the characters here, but since we know, thanks to the internet and announcements being made, some of these characters who are killed off, they already got sequels already planned for them, so they're gonna return one way or another. So that so we get into other things a little bit.
Okay, let's jump on over to Ryan. Go ahead, Ryan.
This movie is obviously 10 years in the making, So it had a lot riding on its shoulders. And usually I like to go into things with an open mind, but it was really hard not to get excited for this thing, which was a bit concerning because for the later half of 2017, there were three things I was really looking forward to: Infinity War, Last Jedi, and Twice Upon a Time. And personally, two of those didn't deliver. So Infinity War, there was a lot I was really concerned about. Boy, did it deliver. From start to finish, it entertained me. It was such an emotional, raw movie. It was about Thanos, and I think it's much better for being about Thanos than it is necessarily about these characters that we've gotten to know over the course of 10 years. A problem with most Marvel movies is their villains don't really feel developed. There's a lot of really weak villains within the MCU, and Thanos comes along and does such a good job because he gets a chunk of the screen time all to himself. And I think that's an important thing about superhero movies is, okay, so for origin stories, it's a little bit difficult to get a good villain because you have to set up the hero. But what Infinity War does right is the fact that it's gone, okay, we have all these established characters. It's not just about them coming together to fight this threat. It's about the threat itself. You learn where Thanos is coming from. In the comics, Thanos' motivations are wildly different yet similar. He wants to please Lady Death, and he has this sort of fascination with her. And this movie decides to sort of take that kind of silly aspect of Thanos and ground it in a much more realistic tone. Josh Brolin does a fantastic job here, as does everyone. I was honestly surprised when he got all of the stones by the end of the movie. Although I knew something was up the moment he got the reality stone, because obviously they did a really clever job at editing the trailers to only ever show that he had 2 stones at any point in the trailer. So the minute he got that stone, I'm like, something's up. And it was, I was legitimately speechless by the end of the movie. As B said, Red Skull showing up, that was, I was not expecting it at all. Red Skull is a character I've been wanting to come back for ages now, and to get him back was absolutely fantastic. But this movie, there's not a lot to say about it that I think is wrong. It was a really good movie.
Yep, it's, you see, that's one thing I liked was the fact that they you had so many characters that if you tried to just focus on just a group of them or just each one, that's a very difficult thing to do, especially when you want to keep a movie of certain length, because once you get over 2.5, 3 hours, all that, sooner or later you got to pee, but also or something else is going to happen we won't describe. But also, they didn't want everybody to lose focus, so instead they focused on the villain. Why is he doing this? What's his motivation? And that's where the best villains come from. The scariest villains are the ones who actually think that what they're doing is what's best. They actually believe in this cause. And the scary part is, when I was watching this also, it made me flash back to an episode of Star Trek back in the 60s. I don't know how many people out there in land remember this, but there was a little episode called The Conscience of the King. And what happened was, we find out that there was a colony that Kirk and a couple other people had grown up on, where food reserves had run out. And basically they were rationing food amongst the population. And this guy who was in charge of the colony named Kodos goes, in order to survive, he killed half the colonists. And sure enough, though, the worst part of the story, the tragic part, a couple weeks later, supply ship showed up. So that's what kind of also caught me, was the similarities, because on his planet, it got to the point apparently that he was a radical. He came forward. He said, we're overpopulated, blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, he said, my vision came true, though. The whole thing, we faced extinction. But also, it just seemed like there was also a bit of brilliant foreshadowing at the beginning of the story when he's telling Thor, about how I know what it's like to lose and all that. And then you get to the end of the movie and there's this tragic outcome where he succeeds. Half of everybody's disappearing. And no, I'll never forgive Spider-Man for using that tragic Tenet line. I don't want to go. Oh, but let's open up the floor. Well, any other favorite moments in there and all that, guys, you want to focus on? We got a short team here, so we might as well just go to open mic. So anybody?
Okay, was of course as we seen Thanos' home planet of Titan. Of course, the fight that happened there with Iron Man, Doctor Strange, and all that. That's when we see the scene where Doctor Strange went all to these alternate futures and only had one solution of how to defeat Thanos. So probably that vision is why he gave the gem to Thanos. So we wait to the next movie to find that out. Of course, then I stood out with Peter Dinklage on his the thing that he created the new hammer for Thor, and all the rest of his race was killed by Thanos. And that was very tragic. And then we jump over to what remained of Asgard and the Asgardians. You see almost all of them are dead, except for Thor. But what the funny question is, there's some characters that from the Guardians that like the Valkyrie and stuff like that. We didn't see no body of them, so we don't know what happened with them. So hopefully maybe they make an appearance in the next movie like that. Excuse me. But what stood out, of course, jumping around, like jumping to Wakanda and all that. That was pretty smart like that because this threat was so big. Everybody had to get involved and everybody had to get in on it. Now, of course, everybody's saying, "Wait a minute, Hawkeye wasn't in it." I said, "Well, in a way, he's in such a seclusion that nobody has contact with him." But I heard he's going to be in the next movie, so hopefully that's good. And it was great to see Samuel L. Jackson return again as Nick Fury like that, even though his scene was a little bit short. But of course, before he went, he gave us that good F-bomb, to to remember him by. Then and of course he hit that signal button to that showed that the next movie will have the female Captain Marvel appear, and of course her movie's gonna come out first for us to understand who this person is. So I look forward to seeing her because how it makes sense like that because her movie takes place in the 90s, so that's gonna be it's gonna be a lot of good stuff like that. Now one of the big things that that's all over the internet is that since Disney got back his rights from Fox, where anybody from the Fantastic Four universe or X-Men appear in the next movie, and the answer to that's gonna be no. I want to say no. If anybody will appear, it will be maybe a CGI character just buzzing by like that, just like that. But they won't play a role in the next part of the movie. So the thing is how you say how can the solution will be for the next part? How can it solve it and defeat Thanos? Well, those who went and see Ant-Man and Wasp, some of the answer is there near the end of the movie, how that's going to be possible, which I don't want to give away like that. No, I don't want to give that away. Let them go to the theater and spend their money like I did to see it. So hopefully that's part of the solution like that because it looked like you're going to have Iron Man there and some of the other heroes there, but it looked like Ant-Man is going to be involved in certain ways like that, which I don't want to say how he does it like that. So it's going to be unusual. And the thing is that there might be another character to appear that was not in this Avengers movie. But because, for instance, like since T'Challa is gone, the next one who be the ruler would be his sister. So she might end up wearing a Black Panther costume because she is the next in line. So she might be in a small part in that movie like that. Just like all the Guardians are gone except for Nebula. So that's gonna be unusual. How she's gonna fit in a role like that, but knowing that her sister's gone, and she really wants to get her hands on Thanos like that. So I'm looking forward for the next part, and of course some of the and Captain Marvel, and the big question is what's gonna happen after the Avengers second movie is done. What will Marvel do to continue their movie franchise with these characters like that? Because I don't think that any of the Fox characters will appear for a few years, but they gotta get everything written down in stone like that. for how they're going to appear like that. Because notice in the 10 years in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there has not been one mention of a mutant. So that's probably going to be brought in differently than the way it is in the comics. So we got to wait on that.
Okay. Yeah, my theory is, though, I think that there's several of them that have pretty much reached the end of the journey. I don't think there's going to be another Iron Man movie. I don't think there's, will they decide to go on with Thor? We don't know. Like I said, there's a lot of them who've already had several movies at this point. So I can see him, just dropping off at this point. We do know there was only going to be like one more Guardians of the Galaxy movie. And even that's, got its own little controversy going on with the firing of James Gunn, which to me was a moron move. But like I said, there's different characters they're going to start bringing up and lead into a different story. That's another possibility also. There's so many characters out there in the Marvel universe who haven't even been touched on yet. So it's not, they've literally got a universe of possibilities.
I certainly think, though, like Ryan, like everyone said, it's sort of the amazing thing about Thanos is that as much as he is the villain, you do feel a sort of sympathy for him by the end, which is as you think you're big bad of the movie and everything like that. There's a relatability factor of it that you've seen by a certain point in the movie, that there was that destruction of his planet, that he's not completely unfeeling, uncaring about how there was genuine emotion that you got from that. And fair play to Josh Brolin and everything like that. He emoted that fantastically in letting Gamora go to get the Soul Stone and everything like that he had to do that sacrifice. And there did seem to be that general affection from him that, the bit that you saw, which was the flashback from her being a child as well. And it wasn't a case of that he wanted it just for pure domination of the universe. It was like you said, it's an altruistic decision that, you could say, oh, well, you've got the Infinity Gauntlet. Click your fingers and get double the resources and everybody lives. But that wouldn't really make a good movie. But there's the case of, he doesn't want anything by the end of it. All he wants to do is watch the sun rise, and to a certain degree, he gets that happy ending for him at the end of it. He wants a very simple existence by the end of the movie, which he does get. But like Will was just saying as well, the second string ones, one thing I think that they did really well this movie that you haven't necessarily had in the lead up to this is that they actually made the Scarlet Witch a really viable character. They did, and I think that it's something they've done. And obviously, this is very much a thing of the moment, certainly with Doctor Who, which is a subject we all like and everything like that. They've amped up the idea of the big woman character and everything like that, the stronger woman character, making them as much a player, whether they be powered or not powered in the case of, Black Widow, but certainly Scarlet Witch, they made her, she's capable of destroying an infinity gem, which is supposed to be something that was a throwaway of the Big Bang and everything, So, they've really amped up her power to the nth degree, and she is, if you read the comic books, an immensely powerful character. So they did do her character justice, I think, which is good. That they've really sort of looked at this and said, well, what can we do with this? Do you know what I mean? And the amazing thing is, what's hard with this movie, like we've all said, is that there's so many parts, there's so much build-up that has gone into getting to this point, that you're still able to keep it in the sort of Marvel movie thing. You still got the jokes in it, so you've still got the interplay between Hong and Doctor Strange. Talking about the Ben and Jerry flavors of and the sparring between Doctor Strange and Tony Stark because they just don't like each other. I think it's brilliant. Other aspect, the jokes are that the smartest guy in the room, if it's not Tony, it's Bruce Banner, but Shri is actually cleverer than the pair of them, to be honest with you. They make such brilliant jokes all the way through, and it breaks the tension, and it just keeps it rolling. Even with the pop culture references that they took over from Spider-Man, and put this in this as well, that he's as much a big character. And I never thought I'd see the point where I would see the Iron Spider on screen. You got that as well, and that was a tremendous thing to see. It is literally a fanboy tick list. You can go through this movie and say, "Yeah, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that." There are points where you can look at it and scream and say, "Why the hell can you do?" It's not perfect. You could say there are points where, why didn't they just cut Thanos' arm off? Because they already did. Because Hong did that earlier in the movie when they were fighting in the park and everything like that, and they cut the guy's hand off. So they've already got existing props on that. They could have done that. The relationship between Gamora and Quill, that you've got to take a big jump of faith that their relationship has got to that point in time, because in the movies that preceded that, it's sort of like you don't know whether they're actually going to be a couple. It's like an undercurrent, but you're not sure. But now it's like full-on love bang and everything like that. So you have to have a suspension of disbelief to a certain degree. So there are, don't get us wrong, there are flaws to this movie. It's by no means a perfect movie, but it's a hell of a bloody achievement. Do you know what I mean? And I don't see how anyone could have done it, and because it could have gone really, really wrong. I think that's it. That's the best way. It could have been. It was theirs to muck up, but they didn't. They delivered.
Yeah, because just think, we're talking $400 million budget. It's like, that is really a big freaking investment. This could have really went south. This could have really been like a major, major flop. But luckily, it's shot past the 2 billion mark. It's like, I think it's already has it hit top grossing? Has it gone over Avatar by now? I haven't checked.
Well, now that it's on download and soon on DVD, I don't know if it's still on theaters like that. I have to check. Because Black Panther just hit 700 million, and there was still a couple of theaters still had it, so that became one of the only two highest grossing movies in the United States. That one.
So, like I said, it's a big, was a big risk. It was a big payoff, obviously. But what I love most about, like I said, they focused on Thanos because I'd like to think, we already got most of the individual character development across the other movies. So that's why I'm glad they kind of tacked off on that a bit, and they focused on the story, on the villain. And, oh, man, just a lot of great movie, a lot of great moments in it. Sure, it, ran on about, just over about 2.5 hours, but like I said, I was glued. Every time I watch it, I'm glued to my seat. It keeps you interested for that whole time. Especially, like I said, when you get to the thing where Rocket Raccoon and you got Bucky out there on the battlefield. It's like, how much for the gun? How much for that arm? I'm definitely getting the arm.
Yeah. And you don't want to know how he smuggled that eye out. I would have washed it first. Do you know what I mean? It's just like it's little throwaway lines that really make it, to be honest with you. I love the fact that it's such a contradiction in terms that you've got Peter Dinklage, who we know is a gentleman of smaller stature, playing a dwarf, ironically playing to type, but he's a giant dwarf, which dwarf is the normal size people and everything like that. And it's also a case of you have this sort of harkening back to, Thor just has no idea of, as much as Drax has no idea of metaphor, nor does Thor, to be honest with you. It's sort of like, well, that's what dying is, and everything like that. Thor is just an object of, just like complete ridicule, but he walks around like a freewheeling idiot to a certain degree who just has no perception because he only sees what's in front of him.
Also, like I said, Bruce Banner got some really kick-ass lines in this movie as well. Like, oh, you guys are really screwed now. Or, that's screw you, Hulk. I'm going to do it myself, you big green giant asshole. Oh, like I said, he just got some of the best ones too. It's like, oh man, like I said, great dialogue between all characters. You got to really say that they did a really great job with the interaction between them all. Even though they all come from different facets of of that particular movie universe, they the way they got them to interact was just great. It's like, especially when the Guardians first meet up, with Doctor Strange and all that. When Doctor Strange first meets Spider-Man, oh, guys, like, I love that. It's like, I'm Dr. Stephen Strange. Oh, we're using our made-up name. I'm Spider-Man.
Yeah, well, it's even with Spider-Man and Quill, isn't it? It's sort of like, Footloose is still the best movie in the world? No, it was never.
It was never.
And even Mantis puts in a Kevin Bacon joke at some point as well. So it's like, yeah.
There's this really old movie called Aliens. If I hear another pop culture reference from you.
What's so cool, you gotta give props is the actors who played Thanos minions like that, his soldiers, like Possum and Midnight like that. They were great characters, man. They really stood out. They were a tough team to beat. And if you notice when you watch the movie, the only way to beat them is to kill them. You gotta kill them, man. They ain't gonna quit. You gotta kill them off. And that was a tough thing.
Yeah. The crazy thing was, like, when me and my friends were watching the movie, I could have sworn, like, just listening to Ebony Moore, there are times where he sounds a lot like Hux from Star Wars.
I thought the same thing when I first watched it. I thought, is it what's his name? Dominic
Gleeson.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. But
in the same way as I thought the lady part was, I thought it was, for a certain degree, she sounded like Kate Blanchett from
Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Hella.
Yeah.
All I know is I punched the air when that preachy old bastard got shot out into space. Oh, God.
Going back to Ragnarok, I think they confirmed that Valkyrie's actually still alive, because there's a part later in the movie where Thor says Thanos destroyed my ship, killed half my people.
Yeah.
So they implied half of them got away out, escape pods or whatever, and I believe Valkyrie's among them, and so was Korg and Meek and all of that. Which, because I think they did an interview with the directors, the Russo brothers, and they asked which characters we didn't see die. Like they went through a bunch of characters and they asked them to say, is this guy dead? Is this person alive? Or there's a few they said too spoilery to comment, and interesting on that was Jane Foster was too spoilery to comment on whether she's alive or not. Interesting. They confirmed Valkyrie alive, but said Korg and Meek were too spoilery to.
Oh, bring back Korg.
So I think that confirms that Korg is going to be the one to defeat Thanos in the end.
He's printing pamphlets as we speak.
Yeah, he's raising revolution. But it really interested me to think that Jane Foster is potentially alive, potentially dead, whatever they want to do with it. They confirmed, who was it? Betty Ross died with the finger snap. So that was interesting. I'm trying to remember a few others. Howard the Duck's still alive, interestingly. The interviewer obviously clearly took some of it as a joke, because he asked if the actor who played Loki in Thor Ragnarok died.
Tom Hiddleston.
No.
Oh, as in
actor Loki. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So he died. So
ironically, it was one of the Hemsworth brothers that did Thor in that play as well, wasn't it? So yeah. But that's another thing as well. That you to get you the idea of the scope of this movie, and sort of like how it kept you sort of like going and everything like that. Within your first sort of 10 minutes, you've got Loki, who has been one of those ones who've died so many times that there has to be a point where he dies and he just don't come back. Yeah, he dies, and also Heimdall dies as well, which you think is Idris Elba. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
That was.
That was that. Obviously, there's a lot of people who are upset that Loki
was
died.
Sad at Heimdall dying.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know. Kill the black guy. Yeah. Jesus. Like I said, but all I'm pleased is Baku is the king from the mountains as well. I wonder if he's going to take over stewardship of Wakanda, as opposed to what Will was saying, that Shree's going to take over. Shree's going to take on the Tony Stark role, and Baku is going to be taking care of Wakanda in T'Challa's place. I think that will be an interesting thing as well, because he's just too cool for school, man.
Mm-hmm.
Did
Yeah,
you
it's
say?
gonna be. Oh, go on ahead.
No, did you say Bucky?
No, Baku, whatever his
Oh,
name.
Baku. Baku. Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Baku.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah, Bucky is ashes.
Yeah, he turned ash.
So
How funny would it have been if the arm didn't disintegrate and Rocket just takes the arm? The arm was just left
Yeah.
there.
Well, it would be cool, at least for
It's
him.
just like, this arm's mine now.
Cinematically, though, you know, as in how you look at it on screen as well, this looked amazing. To be honest with you, yeah. Not only did this film, you know, take all the money at the box office, you saw that money go into that on screen. It really, yeah, and to give you, you know, the scope, I suppose, is the best way to describe it. Is that how, yeah, the Avengers movies have been sort of all like it's been in either one place or two place, but this one, when like the scope of it opened up massively. So you had Wakanda, you had New York, you had Titan, you had all the different locations and everything like that. So you had like it multi locations, and it is literally just like moving bits around the chessboard and putting people in places and everything like that. Yeah, for me, the one that I find really interesting is that the only people now left on Titan is going to be Tony Stark and Nebula, and it's like, you know, where are they going to get to and how are they going to get to where it is and everything like that.
I think a good thing was is that they also got like the director, like Taika Waititi, consulted with all the Thor scenes to make sure that it was, you know, it matched up with their vision of Thor. I think a problem with some of the movies in the past is that there is sort of a tonal thing between the Avengers movies, and then when they're in their own solo movies, they feel there's a little bit of a difference between them. Here, you know, the Guardians act like the Guardians. It's not because, you know, they're in a serious movie that means they're all of a sudden, dead on serious. Drax is an idiot as always, and it's brilliant. Star-Lord is, you know, he is in this deadly situation where, you know, Thanos has his girlfriend and, you know, they are in danger, and he says he's going to blow off a nutsack of a chin. You know, like that is just brilliant. They keep the tone consistent with the franchises.
I'm with you on that one. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And the thing is, Drax delivers some killer lines in this as well. Is a case of it became an internet meme. It's sort of like, isn't it? It's what is was it? What is Gamora? Yeah, that was
Why is Gamora?
Why is Gamora? That's it. Yeah, it became a bit of an internet meme. But yeah, even in the case of this, like I've just become so good at blending in with my surroundings. My movements are so slow that you will not notice I'm here. Then Mantis just walks in and completely undercuts and goes, "Hi, Drax." Yeah.
Brilliant.
That's it, and that's it. You know, even the bits with like Quill changing his voice to copy Thor and everything like that. It's like, no, he's copying me. It's everything like that. Yeah, he's like a pirate and an angel had a baby. It's
weird because the first time I watched it, those comedic elements sort of it ruined it a bit for me. But then watching it again, I'm like, no, it is perfect because the Guardians are not like the Avengers where they sort of knuckle down and get the job done. Gamora is definitely the straight-faced of the Guardians, and the rest are just sort of idiots who, you know, that. And it is perfect because the first time it was a bit jarring, but the second time and eventually the third and fourth time I watched it, I was like, I'm okay with this. This is tonally the best choice they could have done.
And in the same way as well, because it carries on with the Iron Man thing as well. Is that he's become sort of obsessed because of the PTSD type thing, to be honest with you, that he can't, although he's had the shrapnel removed, he can't give up the idea that there's some big thing waiting for him and there's some thing round the corner. And to a certain degree, this is the idea of he finds out that Thanos is the guy who sent Loki in the first place, so he's the instigator of everything. And for the idea as well that Thanos says, you're Stark, that there's that validation for Stark as well, that they are sort of both opposing sides of the masters of however they've both reached that point to a certain degree as well. That it is, you have, like you say, very accurately, that there is this amazing tonal thing that you've got all these different things and they've still been able to get into a coherent Yeah, well, I suppose getting it into a coherent 2.5 hours. Well, I suppose you can do it if you've got 2.5 hours. But it's a hell of an achievement. You know, I don't think there's been anything else that you could say cinematically that you've ever had that many people, that many star power. I mean, the wage budget for this movie is massive in itself alone, but you can still get this and have a coherent movie that works. And this, like we've all said, it's part 1 of 2. Like, where the hell is this gonna go?
Yeah, because for us guys who've grown up in the late 70s, early 80s and through that era, we saw just how seriously Hollywood originally took superhero movies. It was like, oh, so you're going to make this movie about this. Oh, guess what? We'll give you like a $5 budget and all that. It's like, but now that they've had a chance to actually, do this the right way with the right people and all that, it's just mind-blowingly epic. You sitting, I guarantee it, when you're all sitting around, say about, not even say, let's say 20 years ago, how our age are now, there's no way you could have imagined that it was going to get to be this big, the superhero phenomenon, to the point that they would, actually sink out $400 million on a gamble like this for a superhero movie. I'm not kidding. If I had gone back in time and made a bet with somebody, say back in say even 1990, that I'll tell you what, in by about 2020, there's going to be a multi-million-dollar movie that's going to involve superheroes, and it's going to make over $2 billion. They'd laugh in your face.
Well, we saw the first X-Men movie, and it's sort of like, you would think that would be the pinnacle of a superhero group movie that you could get, and you've had this.
Yeah, because I remember back when I was in high school, we used to joke around, say, if you had the money to do an X-Men movie or something, who would you cast in the role and all that and stuff like that? Because we never thought seriously it was going to happen. But then, of course, Bryan Singer came along and he pulled it off. And it's like, and it's just gone up and up and up ever since. It really has. Okay, so anything else before we wrap this sucker up and give it a rating?
Well, those who loved where the concept came from, just got to go to your local comic book store and buy the trade paperback of the Infinity Gauntlet, and how that started and how that story ended. Considering, even though they took a bunch of it from that book, it's not exactly the same as the way this movie is. So it's good to see how two different things from two different decades, came up with this idea of a movie. So you got to give that props.
Mm-hmm. All right, anyone else?
Another thing I really loved about the movie is it in a way took its big players off the board. For example, Vision could easily have been a big threat to the Black Order and all the children of Thanos, whatever they're called in this. And he could have been a big threat to them. They immediately take him right off the board by injuring him early in the movie. He's not really, and obviously Scarlet Witch needs to be with him to get ready to destroy that stone. And, Hulk is, not in the movie because he got his ass beat in the first 5 minutes.
He's scared.
Yeah. And that's a good place to see the Hulk. We're starting to see this sort of, from Ragnarok onwards, this sort of development of Hulk's character. And, he's not just the big monster that Banner calls out to get the job done. He is coming into his own character where he, obviously fears for his life and doesn't want to get his ass beat again. That's really sort of the first time that's kind of happened to Hulk. So it's a new experience to him, and he's just terrified of it. So the fact that they just decide to take, and a lot of people complain, oh, well, why didn't Doctor Strange use the Time Stone against Thanos? Why didn't he use that? Well, you got to think back in the first Doctor Strange movie, when he reverses time, Caecilius just reverses it and is able to exist within that backwards time. And Caecilius didn't have an Infinity Stone. Thanos had 3, which already made him super powerful, including the Reality Stone. I mean, that's all he needed to make sure Doctor Strange couldn't really... He might have been able to use the stone a bit, but Thanos could easily have just gone, no, okay, you can't use the Time Stone anymore. I reverse whatever you've done. It's just... And I think the key thing is that Doctor Strange, looking into all of those futures, he knew what would work and what wouldn't, to beat Thanos. So I think in a way I wouldn't say it's lazy, but like they kind of explain why they don't do things that they could have done. Like many people say, why didn't he just cut the arm off? Sure, but it could also explain why he didn't do it, because he knew what was going to work and what didn't. And I think it's interesting that he chose to save Tony Stark's life, because a lot of people have been saying that Tony Stark could be very much involved with bringing down Thanos in the future. So that is interesting. But yeah, I really commend them for taking the big players off the board, like Vision and Hulk and Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, it's like why was she up there this whole time?
Because that also makes the weaker non-powered characters look really good and kick ass. I feel Cap probably was the one that probably got a little less screen time than most. I feel like they, especially if you read like what they wanted to do with Captain America and his story and where he is standing at this point in Infinity War, you don't really get a lot of development from Captain America, but they have said that the characters that didn't get much to do in this movie are going to get a lot more to do in the next one. And I do find it interesting that none of the original Avengers died. They're all still there. And I did not expect that at all. Because, I mean, I figured, I didn't even think that they were going to have Thanos complete the gauntlet at the end, but sure enough, they do. And the characters they decide to kill off, sure, okay, yeah, they're probably coming back. They're more than likely coming back. I think personally they should just bring back the ones that died from the finger snap. Anyone that died before should probably stay dead. But yeah, sure, bring back the ones that died from the finger snap. But
the one from the finish snap, they could come back. But everybody who died before that, they're not gonna come back, and that probably includes Gamora, because she had to be sacrificed for that gem to exist. So that I doubt she might come back unless there's a way to reverse it. But that's up to Doctor Strange to solve that. So get away on that one.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they come back from it, because as Doctor Strange said, we're in the Endgame now, which means he kind of knows what's going to happen, and there's a reason why. At the end of all that, come on, he thought Tony was a total douche nozzle, yet here he is sacrificing the time stone to save his life. So it's going to be kind of wonder, what was his gambit in this? What was the game plan? What did he foresee was going to work? So also, how's this team that's left over and all these guys going to pick up the pieces and fight this guy when now he's got all of them and now you've got half the manpower? So it's going to be interesting to see how they strategize and do that.
I think what's interesting is I saw some concept art of Thanos, and he's got a weapon. So I'm thinking that he's going to be, and apparently he's you see at the end of the movie he's got damage up his arm after he does the snap. So you're going to think how powerful is that gauntlet going to be? Did he waste most of its power just doing what he did? So it's going to be interesting to see how useful that gauntlet's going to be. I mean, obviously Thanos without the gauntlet was a match for the Hulk. He is a formidable opponent for the Avengers, just without the stones itself. But it will be interesting to see what happens with Thanos if the gauntlet is busted.
I was kind of hoping we were going to find out that like the only reason he didn't snap his, do the reality trick on Peter Quill was because Peter Quill, of course, is half celestial. And I was kind of hoping it would turn out he was immune to the effect. But, well, as we saw at the end of the movie, I guess not. But you see, that's another thing. We find out Thanos, even though how mighty he is, he had to have that glove made just to control the stones, whereas Peter could hold it, for a certain amount of time on it with his own hand and live. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of hoping it was going to reflect something back onto that, but apparently we're not, since he got dusted, literally. So, interesting movie. Like I said, it was a big. We're talking this make Vegas odds look tiny. Gamble. And scary part is it's paid off, and it's paid off in spades. Well, let's go ahead and we'll rate this sucker and we'll put it to bed. Let's start at the top this time with William out of 10. How do you rate Chapter 1 here of Avengers Infinity War?
Just on this chapter, even though it's a 2-part movie, the way it is, I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. And I'm looking forward for Captain Marvel and then the sequel to this movie come to see them both how it goes.
Okay, Beef, what do you rate it?
I'm going to give it a very solid 9. Yeah. Yeah, it's by no means a perfect movie, but God, it's a hell of an achievement for everything that it does. There's going to be stuff that I think when we get the second part, it's going to put it in context. Yeah, in the way that Steve Rogers is able to hold back like Thanos' arm because he sort of like steps back from it. Why Doctor Strange surrendered the time gem. There's going to be a lot of payoff when it comes to the end of it. But like I say, it's new teams, new relationships that you're going to get from the second movie. And it's just a hell of an achievement that you would not have thought this thing possible. Comic book movies for a long time have always been treated as a bit of a joke, as a bit of a niche market. And now it is the domineering force in cinema as it stands at the moment. It has had a huge renaissance, and it's a case of it's not two-dimensional anymore. There is feeling, heart, and heroism with all of it. And that's what's driven these movies for 10 years to just get to this point that you can just have all these people on screen that everyone, if they've not watched all the movies going up to this, they can still watch it. Or if they've only watched the Iron Man movies, if they've only watched the Guardians movies, they can still go and watch this and enjoy it. And that is an achievement in cinema, direction, writing, the way it looks on screen, the sound. It's just amazing, and it is a complete assault on all of your senses, and you will watch this and you will have a reaction to it. So, yeah, it's as an achievement in cinema, you cannot underplay this in any way, shape or form. The only reason I'm giving it as a 9 because what comes next is going to be transcendent. So, yeah.
Okay, Philip.
I'm going to give this a 9 as well, purely because what we said earlier in the podcast that it must be pretty hard to get all those pieces into one game. You know, all those characters to have their moment, and it's done well because even though it's all over the place in different places and different locations, the story is cohesive enough to work with all those characters. So that's why I give it a good 9, because the characters, each one gets a chance to shine. And the story works well.
Ryan?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, it was absolutely fantastic, brilliant experience. I went to see it 4 times at the theaters, and each time I enjoyed it thoroughly, just as well as the first time. It didn't get boring. It did not get dull at all. It entertained throughout the whole thing. For that reason, I have to give it a 10 out of 10. It could certainly change after Avengers 4. It certainly could come down a little bit. It is a movie that does have to depend on its but it does stand alone. They have been clear that Avengers 4 isn't like, part 2. It is its own movie that just so happens to follow up the events of this. But nonetheless, the events are intertwined, so we will have to see where it's going to go, what's going to happen, what if the stakes continue to be as high as they were in this one, if not higher. So, yeah, just summing up, 10 out of 10, brilliant movie.
I've got to agree with you. I'm scoring this one a 10. And the reason why is when you can take this many characters and put them all in the right place, give them just the right amount of screen time, give them the proper interaction, also the cinematography, the story itself, and also keep it interesting to the point that you will sit in your seat for 2.5 hours and still be excited as hell when the end credits roll, as you were. Well, then again, not excited, but because everybody just died, well, half everybody. But still, you're still so absorbed into the story. That is a masterwork. That deserves ultimate score.
You know what the funny thing is? How much this film would get recognized when it comes to Oscar time.
Probably, I don't know. It's just the Academy has been incredibly notorious at turning their backs on sci-fi movies in general, unless it's for cinematography, special effects, or music, things along that line. Yeah, they'll throw you a bone. But when it comes to Best Picture, all right, here's a classic example. Jim Cameron. I do not believe for a fucking instant that it was a coincidence that, oh, look, his ex-wife with the Hurt Locker just happens to win the award. That's called making an example out of somebody who made a sci-fi movie too well that we couldn't ignore it. I don't buy that story for an instance that the Hurt Locker won over Avatar, which went on to be the highest grossing picture of all time. Please. I still think that was a classic story of how dare you make a good movie. And that's how seriously I think the Academy looks at sci-fi in general. They always have. Look at all the great movies, moments, and all that they've ignored in the past few decades just because they were termed as the sci-fi genre. We can't have that in our proper Academy Awards. No. We'll throw you a little bone every now and then, but if you dare go for Best Picture, we'll make an example of you. And I'm sorry, like I said, I still don't buy that bullshit story that the Hurt Locker won over Avatar. I've seen the Hurt Locker. It was shit. Okay? Oh, look, I'm a guy who diffused. Oh, by the way, and they don't mention the fact that not even a couple of years later, this is just for your footnote for you people who are still watching, if you are, they got sued, the people who made and wrote the Hurt Locker, because it just happened to sound a lot like I think he was I can't remember if he was a Marine veteran. I think he was, who was in ordnance disposal, and he had written a book. And oh, looks and reads a lot just like that movie that Bigelow put out. So he did sue him, and I can't remember if they settled or not. I'll have to look it up. But I think it might still even be ongoing. So once again, great movie, great ensemble, great cinematography, great music. All I can say, the only word that describes this movie is epic. So really looking forward to part 2. Well, that's all we have for you this week, folks. Be sure to join us next week when we're going to get together and take a little trip. Matter of fact, you may want to pack your safari gear. We're going to take a trip to a little country called Wakanda, and we're going to talk about a movie called Black Panther. So join us next time. We'll see you then. Have a good one.
See you.
See you on the flip side, kiddies.
Any film that can make Edinburgh train station look good is good by me.